Hey there, YouTube. Shecky here. Just wanted to do a little field report of some experiences I had with these blades, and just tell you kind of what my observations were about them individually and as they relate to the group. To be honest with you, um, when I decided to do this, I was really hoping to find out that the system of these two items or these two items would be a usable system for regular backcountry woodworking. It didn't really work out that way, and I'll explain why as I go along. I'm going to take these individually. The Sawviver, I think a lot of people are familiar with that. It's a great tool, and I wanna clarify some things about this tool. I'm going to put this in shop woodworking terms, but this is essentially a cross-cutting tool. In other words, the purpose of this tool is to cut against the grain and essentially to size the length of your particular piece of wood. The only other item that effectively does that in this group is the axe, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this thing really does a great job. Just cut through everything like butter. I was working on drier mesquite wood, which is hard as anything and knotty as anything. So really put it through the works. Did a great job. Went right through it, and just to as way of a preview, as far as speed and effort efficiency, this was the runaway champion as far as cross-cutting, and that's to be compared primarily with an axe. This is not a bad tool at all, especially if you want to go out and with the least amount of stuff possible, or just want to carry something for woodworking just in case. You can actually carry just this and be fine. This is the Trailhawk by Cold Steel. I think American Tomahawk is the sub name of the company, but I actually successfully cross-cut fairly large pieces of wood with this. You can see the damage, not the damage, but the effects of the cutting. And I actually was able to also use this to rip cut, which would be with the grain, those by batoning down into wood, basically, that kind of method. And it did a reasonably good job. The limitations were definitely clear. Basically, I used this head as a measurement, and I didn't want anything wider than double the head, and anything longer than double the length of the head. And it would do okay with those. Slower, more effort. But it would do it. So this is a decent survival tool. However, on a planned backpacking trip where I know I'm going to be doing woodworking, this is probably not going to be what I take. Alright, moving on. This is the Cold Steel Bowie machete, 12-inch variety. Had a lot of high hopes for it, but it just didn't perform. It just doesn't have the swing weight. Very comfortable handle, but it just didn't have the swing weight necessary. And it also is, I guess, I should have taken the advice of everyone that I'd listened to. It just isn't thick enough. Instead of with a thicker blade, I basically had to get just past halfway, and the thickness of the blade would essentially pop the wood apart. With this, I had to go close to 80% of the way, and because there was so much contact with the wood, it becomes harder and harder the deeper it goes into the wood. The wood, until it cracks, wants to close back onto the blade and makes it harder and harder to to baton through the wood, and this guy just didn't get it done. It did a fine job with limbing and stuff like that. And again, if I had to defend myself with it, it would do a fine job with reach. But it just didn't do what I'd hoped it did. Next blade is the Ka-Bar BK9. This actually outperformed my expectations. I was very happy with the performance of this blade overall. It doesn't have the width of some of the other knives that I tested, so it did still have to go deeper into the wood before the wood split, but it did do a fairly good job. The handle was very comfortable. However, the handle did represent a problem for me. I'd say 3 or 4 pieces of wood, batoning through 3 or 4 pieces of wood, this handle actually became loose enough where it was not usable. Now, I had my Leatherman with me, and I specifically made sure I had a bit that would tighten these, but it was a problem. And later, after I had gotten back, I took this apart. I took this handle apart and realized that the blade stock and the screws that go into the handle are the only parts that are metal. There's no part inside this handle that's metal. So you're basically screwing down into what is essentially hard plastic. And I don't like that, because as I'm sure you know, if you over tighten onto plastic, you're going to begin to destroy and stretch the plastic, and you'll have issues with that. I did get it back. I will be putting Loctite on this to hopefully prevent that problem from occurring again, but it is a problem. I don't like that part. And also, because it is hard plastic, it did vibrate a lot. I did feel that when I got stuck in a knot, when I really had to go pounding on it. I definitely felt it with this handle. Next is the Cold Steel Recon Scout. I've showed this before. This is still a great job. Again, this is that thick blade that I'm talking about. I believe it's 5/16. This is just a bad knife. And I mean that in a good sense. It does a great job. Obviously, there are limitations to it because of its size, but I mean, this thing just tore through stuff. I mean, you can see this was clean before I went. You can kind of get an idea. See if I can get that gleam on there. There it is. You can see there's some nastiness on the blade, which is a good thing. This thing was not slowed down by anything other than the fact that it's a shorter blade, which brings me to my final contestant, the Cold Steel Trailmaster. I was really hoping that this knife was not going to impress me. I'll be honest. With the price increases that we've seen, the fact that they don't coat the blade anymore, I was really hoping to just come back and thrash on this blade and say, it's not any better than the Recon Scout. But seriously, guys, this blade is awesome. If you're going to go do some serious woodworking, if you go into a situation knowing you're going to be thrashing on wood, I'd highly recommend just putting out the 130 or whatever bucks it takes to get this dude in your collection and just do it. Because honestly, this thing limbed better than anything. This thing chopped when I needed it to, and it batoned like nothing else here. I did strop the factory edge, but that's it. The only other modification I talked a little bit about is I knocked down this false wedge because I didn't want it to destroy my baton, and it didn't. And just an amazing blade. So really, as far as I'm concerned, my backcountry kit is right there. The BK9, the axe, the Cold Steel machete, they're fine for light use, but if I'm doing a lot of work, in other words, if I'm doing a full night's work of woodworking to keep a fire going, this is what I want on my side. And maybe, I could replace that with something even lighter, like a short Ka-Bar or something like that. But from my experience, these are the guys that you want with you. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free. I appreciate all my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, I encourage you to do so. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them. I don't really want any hall monitors, but other than that, feel free. And I hope you guys get out there and have some fun. Thanks.